beard.
All right, so before we wrap things up today, we did want to check in with you. We've been talking about the merging of sports morons and political morons, and this is the perfect topic, the perfect author. Wouldn't you know it? Friend of the show, Megan McArdle, registered a take in the Washington Post called "A Defense of Roger Goodell." That I would be remiss without getting your thoughts on.
I just like to point out that she actually plagiarized that for me. I wrote an article in defense of Roger Goodell like 4 years ago. So just from the get-go, I like it a lot because it's my own take that she's recycling.
I haven't read this. I'm going to just make a shot in the dark guess. Does she start off by saying, bear in mind, I don't watch football or know anything about sports, but it seems to me that this is how things should go.
Not quite.
Because I can't believe she's a football fan. I mean, maybe she is. I don't know. I don't know what any of these ghouls like. I mean, when I think of Megan McArdle, I honestly just imagine her standing stock still in her incredibly well-appointed kitchen, just staring at the wall.
I think the basic premise...
Or just cutting fucking carrots until she has a giant pile of them.
Like Clooney in Born After Reading.
Yes.
I think what she's like getting at is that Roger Goodell is in a tough spot.
Yeah.
And therefore, we shouldn't be allowed to criticize him.
It goes back to what I said about, that's exactly what she's going to do. It goes back to my J.R. Smith thing. You just got to respect his decision.
You got to respect Goodell. Yeah, he gets $30 million a year. His job, he has a great job. I mean, his job is to be paid $30 million a year to just get made fun of.
Yeah.
Like his job is to deflect any criticism from the owners and just take it himself.
He's the world's most compensated dunk tank clown.
Yes, that's the perfect way of describing.
Taking the heat in this regard would be like this new policy that if NFL players want to kneel for the national anthem, they have to do it in the locker room. You have to stand if you're on the field. This is the new NFL rule.
Yeah, well, that would actually have been more easy to understand than what they ended up doing, which was they leave it up to the team to stay in or out of the locker room. But if you come out for the national anthem and you either kneel or show disrespect to the flag, which is a very nebulous term, like is facing away from the flag disrespect, is like 90 degrees away. Is that disrespect?
Just sort of subtly rolling your eyes, like, oh.
What about doing a jerk off hand motion?
Yeah, jerk off hand motion or crying like no Sean Moreno. Like, is that disrespectful to the flag, or is that actually should you get like an extra 2-point conversion?
You have to cry.
Patriotic? You
have to cry. It's not respectful to see the flag and not weep at its sight.
Game doesn't start until John Elway comes on the side. Yeah. So what they did was they put this new rule in. They say, okay, well, if you disrespect the anthem, then it's a 15-yard penalty.
Yeah.
So they've like incorporated the national anthem now into the
literal
laws
game
of the
itself.
game, which is the one thing that they were trying to like avoid at all costs. But the NFL doesn't know how to handle any crisis without making themselves like a de facto branch of law enforcement.
Yeah.
So this was the most hated rule in the NFL used to be the catch rule, because nobody knows what a catch is. They have to review it 9 times, and it takes 30 minutes for a guy sitting in an office in New York to make a ruling on it. And now they've gone and they've turned the kneeling rule into the new catch rule, where they're going to have to do like video replay reviews of whether or not a player's knee was on the ground. Was he kneeling during the national anthem? They're going to have a kneeling analyst probably, which I've submitted my name for. Like, I will do full-on national anthem analysis for Fox NFL Sunday, no questions asked.
Could they have like incentive system too, where it's like if one of the players gave up their first class seat for a troop on the way there, they get like a 10-yard gain? Or if like you're scouting players in college, if you see like a lineman at FSU or something knock out an atheist professor, he gets just like a first round draft pick.
I think that's a great idea. Yeah, well, J.J. Watt would be the league MVP for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have
he was
an
the
idea.
hero of Marine Todd.
I've got an idea. How about they just don't play the fucking national anthem before a goddamn sporting event?
Yeah, it's
now you're getting ridiculous.
Whoa, Matt.
Yeah.
Like, the thing is, it's like everyone takes it for granted, but why stop there? I don't know if people know this, but in India, they play the national anthem before movies when you go to a movie theater. Well, why don't we do that? Why are we disrespecting the flag by not standing for the anthem before we watch the fucking book club or whatever? Why are we doing that?
I play it before I have sex.
Why don't we play it at restaurants before you eat?
Oh,
Which, by the way,
idea.
you do. This is a follow-up thing I found out about that. The Troop Steakhouse, the Troop Barbecue restaurant that we talked about a while ago, is that on I think like at noon every day they do play the national anthem, and everyone is expected to stand, like with a fucking bib and a bunch of rib grease on your fingers. But why isn't that national? Why? Well, it's like why don't where are you deciding that this is the a precise amount of respect that the anthem and the troops need? What? There's always more places to be giving troops respect and the flag respect. Why aren't we doing it there?
I think that the national anthem should be played 5 times throughout the day. And no matter where you are, you have to drop what you're doing to kneel and face Fort Benning. Because that's where the Green Berets are.
And maybe we could put big towers in every city with a guy whose job it is to go up there and give the call to the anthem.
Call to respect. Yeah. Call to valor.
To call to respect.
Maybe here's an idea. Maybe
it's actually Carl Lewis has that job.
I got an idea. 30 days a year. There's 1 month a year where you fast from dawn to dusk, thinking about the troops. You can't eat during the day or drink. You have to do it after dusk for 30 days each year. How about that?
Yeah, and you think about the sacrifices and the battle that they're fighting on an ongoing basis. I like that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then the problem with this is like there's going to be a succession struggle. You're going to disagree whether Luke Bryan or Jason Aldean is the successor to Garth Brooks. Who's the true, sort of rightfully
the Battle
guided
of Branson
ruler.
decided that. Thank you very much.
Yeah. That was an inconclusive battle. Aldean's forces were surrounded, but they sort of emerged as a stalemate. And also, Luke Bryan worships fire. Okay, he crawls around the floor. He crawls around the floor of CMT Studios like a snake. It's disgusting.
The Luke Bryan people go every year. They make a pilgrimage to Branson and they flog themselves with cowboy belt buckles.
The government of Tennessee is under fire for safety hazards at the Grand Ole Opry Hajj.
The problem was the Jason Aldean forces just didn't have the high ground.
Well, if you look at, I think it's in Pittsburgh every year they have the Kenny Chesney concert and the aftermath of that. That's basically the Hajj for country.
Oh, it is 25. Yeah. I just saw this. 25 tons of garbage were recovered from the Kenny Chesney concert.
All right, let's dive into McArdle's defense of Roger Goodell. So she begins by writing, whatever you think of Roger Goodell, commissioner of the National Football League, you should recognize that he's trying to solve a genuinely hard problem, or rather 2 hard problems. On one hand, he's trying to maximize the audience for NFL games. At the same time, he's also trying to negotiate the same fraught racial politics that our nation has been struggling with for centuries, but in miniature and in prime time. So those are the 2 problems he's trying to solve. Nearly 70% of NFL players are black. Why wouldn't those players want to use their privileged position to highlight one of the most pressing problems facing their community today? But the last time the Nielsen Year in Sports report broke down the numbers in 2013, football viewership was 15% black, but 77% white. Only 35% of whites are sympathetic to the Black Lives Matter movement, which seems a reasonable proxy for their sympathy for the kind of in-your-face protests that refusing to stand for the national anthem
It's
represents.
totally in my face.
I have to watch the part of the game where they sing the song.
I mean,
and they're just there doing it.
It's
shoving it in my
I'm
face.
really more into the song part. The sports is just everyone having a good time blowing off steam after the song.
Right. The crazy part is everybody watches the Red Zone channel now anyway, so we don't even see the national anthem. The games start and then people file their reports on who kneeled and who didn't kneel for the national anthem. So it's like no one's actually outraged in real time. We just find out about it later.
I actually have a kneeling fantasy league where it's like me and a bunch of guys are betting. I've picked the players most likely to kneel, not just in football, like also in baseball, cricket for some reason. I've actually like wasted a lot of spaces in my roster in cricket. I forgot they don't play the American national anthem there.
Right.
And esports. Who's starting the game in Overwatch by making their character crouch?
By the way, do they before the Overwatch tournament? Do they do the national anthem? Do they stand for?
They
the
play the
national anthem?
Overwatch national anthem, which is a Lady Gaga song.
I do like how in any one of these, in any situation where Megan feels the need to comment, what compels her to comment is her instinctive sympathy for someone in an absurd position of power.
Yeah.
That's the only thing she cares about.
So she says here, let's be clear. Whites should be more sympathetic to the problem of racial inequities in the criminal justice system. If cops treated whites the way they treat blacks, white people would not be arguing that crime is the real problem and that profiling is just statistics. Of course, Megan has argued that on numerous occasions herself. They'd be frantically calling for legislators and muttering about the Second Amendment. But few human beings of any color are as keenly alive to the suffering of others as they are to their own travails. So, however desirable, it seems unlikely that white America en masse will suddenly muster towering outrage about a problem that doesn't much affect them, not even if they see athletes protesting it on national television. So she's sort of like, she's describing like a real moral and political schism in American culture, but as usual in Meghan's inimitable way, she finds a way to like describe both sides of it in the most banal way possible without ever really getting to the heart of.
Yeah.
She just sort of like just states both sides, doesn't really say anything about either of them.
Yeah.
It seems her take is just, you may not agree with what Roger Goodell says, but I will defend to death his right to say it, his right to fuck it up as much as possible. And there's really no take that she has coming out of it. But I think that there is an elegant solution that the NFL could employ, which is like, let's skip past this First Amendment bullshit and let's just say, let's bring back the Third Amendment, and you should be allowed to kneel for the anthem if you quarter a troop. You have to room and board with a troop for that week, and then you have permission to kneel.
So she describes that NFL viewership is down 17% since 2015, which, as you've pointed out, is just all TV ratings are down that same.
Also,
right.
football is bad now. Football games are hard to watch because they've done all these rule changes, and they take forever. It just seems to me that they're more boring than they used to.
Oh, Matt, you're right, though. She goes, attendance and public perception about the NFL are also hurting. There's a robust debate over whether the protests are contributing to the decline, but we'll sidestep that since I know little about the sport, and the opinions of people who do know something
There we go.
largely seem to be conveniently correlated with their opinions about the protesting
There
players.
we go.
So again, she's never ever going to say, whether it's right or wrong, whether an athlete should be able to kneel for the national anthem and not have their job threatened, or
white supremacy.
Yeah.
Opinions differ.
Yeah. So she goes, the decline of football may be inevitable, but even so, it's probably a bit much to expect an NFL commissioner to say, I guess we're doomed, and seek meaning in the impending death by sending the league on, quote, a suicide charge against racial inequality.
That it just literally they were wearing detonation vests and killing the cops that were protecting them. It's unbelievable.
And she goes, I'm not going to read all of this, but she goes, the solution that the league's owners actually chose was the kind of mushy compromise America used to specialize in, designed to please no one but satisfy everyone. McArdle believes that is like the height of morality. But she goes here, which encapsulates another problem that this country is struggling to solve. The burgeoning politicization of every facet of American life. And not just the vague patriotism of playing the national anthem at sporting events, but the specific political vision of one of our nation's two warring tribes. And then she just goes into talking about tribalism.
We live in a society. Thank you, Megan.
Everyone's in a tribe except Megan.
She goes, there's a deeper and arguably more important objection. A healthy society needs to foster spaces where we forget about our political divisions and unite over something else. Without those spaces, we don't have the common reservoir of goodwill, of shared identity from which durable political change must ultimately be forged. So what she's saying here is NFL players or any black person concerned about the way the cops treat them, you're going to have to take the L on this one, at least as far as football goes. Because it's a space that we all need to come together in. And as you said, Matt, if they really wanted to be apolitical, how about just cut out the fucking national anthem?
Yeah, how about we don't have a fucking caravan of Bradley fighting vehicles doing donuts in the fucking field before the game?
Don't you take away my flyover. Don't you do it.
I mean, like most entertainment that people consume is devoid of politics. Like that's the dumbest thing about this take. Like if you broke it down by age, like you would find, by my rough estimate, there's about like 2 million, maybe, probably less than that, people in all combined American media markets who want to consume like cable news all the time. But the rest of it, which is like Jake Paul, Professional Overwatch, Takeshi 69, these are all apolitical things. Whatever like network show people like that's called like, The Nanny's Wife or whatever the fuck people like. It's all totally apolitical. It is taking a belt sander to your brain. You feel very nice. Most people don't care about politics. Most people don't vote.
Essentially, what Megan is doing here is creating equivalency between Kaepernick or any politically active African-American athlete who wants to use their platform to highlight the injustices in America's judicial and policing, and someone who gets insanely mad because for 10 seconds at the beginning of their weekly wing and beer fest, they have to look at someone who disagrees with them. Like she's saying like that is like equally intolerant, or like that's equal
hostility.
Sort of hostility.
You're being hostile to the fucking corn-fed rube racists who make up the NFL fan base.
She says most people don't want to immerse ourselves in politics 24/7. In fact, most people can't stand it. But like she's saying, like it's 10 seconds, it's 5 seconds.
And most people never watched it before this. People and Kaepernick was doing it for a while and nobody even noticed.
Right. At first he was like sitting on the sidelines.
Yeah.
He wasn't even kneeling, and then I guess he talked to maybe Nate Boyer or one of the former military guys that was in the NFL, and they said, "Hey, how about you kneel?" And so now he kneels like it's a recommendation from a real live actual troop that said, "Hey, just kneel. That's not disrespectful." And so now he kneels, but now that's a bigger problem.
Well, because it's anything that questions the order is disrespectful because it's a threat. You're threatening my man cave. You're threatening the sanctity of my fucking meatneck existence, and therefore I'm violently angry at you. But what the NFL is dealing with really, and if she wasn't a pinhead, she'd recognize this, is it's the double-edged sword of monopoly. This is the same thing that Facebook is dealing with, and Twitter is that the idea that, well, people can do what they want. It doesn't hold sand if you are a hegemonic thing. Like Facebook is essentially a monopoly, right? And in terms of sports, when you talk about like the most popular sport, it is NFL by a vast amount. And there's no other football leagues. They have an anti-monopoly exemption that allows them to be this absolute market bestriding colossus. And what that does is then you've created a totality where people want to feel represented because they have nowhere else to go. Like if they're on Facebook, there's no alternative to Facebook. If they want to watch football, there's no alternative to the NFL. So everyone needs to feel like they're being represented in it.
Hey, Vince McMahon, where are you?
The XFL 2020.
Yeah.
See, they're talking about that, and who was going to bring it back as like the troop football alternative.
League, yeah.
And that's going to be awesome. Like, like landmines that will blow up if you kneel on the field during the national anthem. That kind of thing. Every half you have the national anthem. Actually, no. After every touchdown, you have the national anthem. If we had that situation and there were a bunch of different NFL footballs, you could be more loosey goosey about it. But the NFL is this totality, so people want to feel like they are part of it, and the same, and that's like, this is the fucking bed you made, NFL, by being America's sport.
And this is like
we're all miserable shitheads who hate each other. That's part of being America.
And what I like about this piece is that McArdle, of course, cops to not understanding anything about sports or football. That's another standard move of her. If she's opining on a topic, she'll always make sure to qualify by saying, "I know nothing of what I'm talking about."
She always buries in every article a caveat. You shouldn't have read this.
So she doesn't understand sports or football. She doesn't follow football. She certainly doesn't understand anyone who's upset about cops killing people.
Only in the most dispassionate, hypothetical,
she certainly doesn't understand
bloodless
that
way.
But what she does understand is the position Roger Goodell is in, which is being sort of front man for like a series of unaccountable oligarchs,
yes,
and their $1 billion industry that literally grinds the lives of black people into grist and money for them.
Yeah, turns their brains into soup.
So the thesis for this article is, hey, just knock it off with Roger Goodell. He sucks. He makes bad decisions, but you shouldn't be mean to people.
He's doing his best.
Yeah,
Literally.
Roger Goodell is doing his best. The problem is that his best is really, really fucking bad. Roger Goodell is like, he's not a lawyer, and he'll be quick to remind you that he's not a lawyer, which it means that he can get away with saying a lot of shit that a lawyer would get in trouble for saying. And his other technique, besides like this convoluted legal mumbo jumbo that he puts out, is to just issue statements that are so boring that you fall asleep after the second sentence. A typical Roger Goodell statement will be, the NFL is certainly observing and taking in all sides of this issue, and we are implementing certain protocols for pregame behavior that will ensure a continued success for game day experience for all of our fans. And it's like you just want to fucking die, and you don't care what else he says at the end of that statement. He could throw in Mein Kampf in the second paragraph, and nobody would ever get to it.
Maybe that should be the true compromise. Like if Megan was more competent, she would recognize that compromise is not meeting somewhere in the middle, probably like closer to the right. It's taking all extremes. And what you could do is you start out the game with Roger Goodell saying, that corporate statement speak, we're taking in all sides of this, we're trying to create the optimal experience, blah, blah, blah. Then, boom, national anthem. Everyone stands. But then one troop is killed. But the troop is Bo Bergdahl.
Okay.
And everyone is happy. Everyone
Something
gets
for
to
everyone.
do the thing that they like. Fans of Roger Goodell, of which there are many, get to experience him, and he gets to level the playing field. Fans of the anthem get to experience that. Enemies of American Empire get to enjoy something, but they're not taking away of anything from the right wing people. They hate Bo Bergdahl, and we can keep finding deserters.
What this article is Meghan is actually, she doesn't like sports, doesn't really like art or culture of any kind, outside of cooking recipes and things like that.
I don't know anyone like that.
But she is a fan of Goodell because she's a fan of bloodless, soulless flax for corporations and billionaires, which is what she is. That's how she got her start.
That is
in the Koch brothers Institute for Humane Studies.
That is an awesome type of person. Just like, I don't really like the games; it's kind of boring. But Roger Goodell, he just knocks it out of the park every time.
Sorry,
I'm just a fan of leadership. You know?
She closes here saying, fervently supporting free speech doesn't necessarily imply that everyone should have to listen to that speech every waking moment, which is why you can support what the athletes are kneeling for and their right to speak forcefully for their opinions without retaliation or censure, and yet still recognize the wisdom of a Goodell-style compromise that leaves Americans at least a few arenas where they only have to root for one team at a time.
Oh, Roger, you left it.
By the way,
all out on the field.
without retaliation or censor, like Kaepernick still doesn't have a job in the NFL because the owners literally colluded to keep him from one.
Or even a sponsorship deal.
Yeah.
Hey,
so
Roger Goodell, Player of the Year, though. He left it all at the field to keep the NFL apolitical.
Real blue collar commissioner.
He just shows up there.
he comes to commish every day.
He's the first guy in his office, last guy to leave his office every day. Real ham and eggs type of commissioner.
Yeah, he's not one of those showboats and that you'd get in other leagues. Guys like Bud Selig, like flashy, sexy players like
Bart Giamatti.
Kennesaw Mountain Landis.